You're about to experience a message from here at South Lake Church where we
engage, grow, and share.
So make sure to subscribe below and keep watching together as we engage, grow, share Jesus in our community relationships. So here at South Lake, we're continuing through stories, seeing how God uses different people throughout history for His purposes, for His story. And at South Lake, we gather together to hear people's stories and be with one another. So my encouragement for you this week is take time to be with one another as we do this. In fact, this Tuesday, we continue watching The Chosen. So if you've not had an opportunity to check out an episode and just experience what The Chosen is, join us Tuesday nights. It's a great way to come together. Wednesday, we continue our online Bible study for about a half hour, talking through what does it mean to be part of South Lake, to discover South Lake, but again, how God works through it all. And then this Friday, we have Wine in the Word. So after a long week, if you're looking for a chance to hang out with some others and learn about wine and how we talk about it and a devotion, this week we'll be talking about Pinot Grigio. So if you're interested this Friday over at our house, right, Bets? Oh, my house. That's right. I got to rephrase that. We're going to have people over just to gather together for a devotion, spend time. And of course, this Saturday is Immerse, as we continue to read the prophets and seeing how God uses everybody to speak up and talk to His people, even in the Old Testament and today. Well, that leads us to our reading today and who we are together. We're talking about this couple named Boaz and Ruth. We started with Adam and Eve. Last week we talked about Rahab, and now we are here with Boaz and Ruth. And as we gather together with them, my question, the thought I've been thinking about this week is, what does it mean to act, but also have trust? To have a will, which you can use, but also trusting God's plan with that. And that's a scary proposition. I mean, can we think of times in our lives where we need to act, but we, at the end of the day, have to trust others to make the right decision? Aren't any examples that we can think of? How about trying to get into college? You got to fill out an essay, you got to fill out all that fun paperwork, but at the end of the day, is it your decision whether or not you get in? No, you have to trust. Or how about a job? In order to get one, you have to apply, take action. You interview, you show your references, you do everything you can to show why it should be you. But is the decision left up to you? No. Are there other examples in our lives that you've experienced that sometimes you don't get to be the one to choose it, but you have to be a part of it? Betsy? We're not, so getting dogs, for example, or new pets, that could be both. Has anybody tried to solo parent, trying to buy a new puppy or a cat, and did it always work out? No. Anybody on a team of some kind? Do you have to practice? Do you have to try to get yourself ready to participate in the team? Does that mean you'll be picked on that team, though, just because you work hard? Not always. Yeah, unless your parents are the coach, but that's a different discussion there. I bring this up, I laugh, because in our life, there are times where we need to act, but there's also times where we need to trust. And those two working together feel like they collide, are opposite at times, but it's also a reminder of, know what? That's why we have a God above us all. And this has hit me particularly because I like to scheme and do everything I can to affect the outcome. Which, is that a shocker? No, for those who are new today, yeah, well, this is your pastor. I will do everything I can to line my ducks in a row so that way, if one of those ducks gets out of a row, I got multiple ones in the back to refix it, at least make it look good. But what happens when we try to influence too much, when we try to take too much action? God finds a way to make it his will, not mine, which normally doesn't end out that case. That's right. Well, let's take the opposite. Maybe there's something you really want, but you don't know how to ask for it. You don't know how to do anything with it. So instead of trying to do something, you just sit around and just hope things happen. Is that always the case? Does that work out? No. It takes action, but it takes faith. They both come together. Let's look at our reading here. Reading today comes from Ruth chapter 4. And before we get started, a reminder, if you have questions, you can text 94,000 on my mind. We'll talk about it after. If you're on Facebook right now, we will talk through them at the end of service if anybody has a question. So in Ruth, the book of Ruth, we've seen now that God's people, after Rahab from last week, have moved into the promised land. There have been a lot of battles, wars, and fights. And all of a sudden, this person named Boaz has settled in, and in coming to town is this new person named Ruth. Now, some people ask me from last week, well, what happened to Rahab? How did she become part of the family? Why didn't we talk about that? Well, here's the reason why. Rahab marries somebody from the tribe of Judah, known as Solomon. He has a son. And guess what his son's name is? Boaz. Boaz is the son, the child of Rahab. So we're seeing a continuation of that story right now, which is kind of cool. So Boaz, in the Bethlehem area, has fields, is actually pretty well off, potentially rich. They have a whole bunch of workers, and things are working great for him. That's Boaz's story. The other person on our story, what's her name? Ruth. Ruth marries an Israelite in her native land called Moab, literally across the river. And on that opposite side, her husband died. You know what? His brother died. Her father-in-law died. So Ruth was left with her sister-in-law and her mother. And her mother says, you guys stay here. I'm going back to die in my homeland. Which, that's taking action right there. Thank you, Philip. And as they go back, Ruth goes with her. And we find out Naomi, who she changes her name to, takes on Ruth like a daughter. So they go back to their land. But the problem is, the sons have died, the father has died, there's no heir to the land they had. So Naomi, trying to figure out how to make this work, realizes, I might be a little too old to get married again. By the way, that's not a story to say if you feel too old, you should not try to get married. Just Naomi feels, I don't think I have the best chance to find a man right now to take this land back. But my daughter now, Ruth, could find a suitor. And as they go together, Naomi sees Boaz out in the fields working, and he has Ruth go out there and pick the wheat, to go after all the workers and take some for her family. And guess who took notice of Ruth? Boaz did. And Naomi, seeing this whole thing work, kind of like a matchmaker, gets Ruth to go again, and then tells her, hey, once he's done working, really go next to him and let him know that you're interested. Would you say that Naomi's taking some action right now and encouraging Ruth to take action? I think so. But Boaz realizes, as much as he wants to take action, to take on Ruth and marry her, there's a problem. The problem is this. The law stated that when the heir was lost to a piece of land, it was the tribe's duty to protect that land stay in the name of the family. So the rules were set up that the closest family members would take on the other family members, particularly widows and sisters, and keep the line of the husband and the sons going forward. In a sense, keep their names in the story. Well, Boaz realizes that there's somebody besides him who could claim Ruth as a bride. And that's where our story is today. So what does Boaz do? He goes to the city gates. Why it says that is because that's where the business is done. That's where all things happen. So Boaz calls out this guy who has claim to the land. Hey, come over here. Let's have a conversation. And he invites 10 men. For those who don't know about Jewish tradition, in a synagogue, what's quorum for a synagogue? 10 men, 10 witnesses. Gets 10 witnesses around him to make sure what they're about to discuss is legit amongst everybody in the community. So Boaz says, hey, there's family land right here. You have the right to take it. Because he does. Again, does Boaz want this land and want Ruth? Yes. But he makes a point that I can't just claim it. You have to first accept it or decline it. There's a lot of trust going on here. Think about Ruth right now. She started to form a relationship with somebody, and she has to let this transaction happen for the relationship to take place. I'd be kind of scared. I don't know about you. She has a lot of faith right now. So Boaz goes up to him and says, hey, this is your land, you should take it. And what's his answer? Yeah, like who here would not take land if it was given to you? Well, some of us would be like, yeah, we've learned that you probably should do a water study first, but details. Buying land and you're given land, absolutely. But Boaz makes a point, hey, but if you take this land, it also comes with Ruth. And the rules and the law state that since she lost her husband, you, this guy about to get the land, you need her now to have children in his name. And once he dies, the Redeemer, guess who inherits the land? The children. Are those his original children? No. He would, in a sense, be sharing his wealth with another family now. So guess what his answer is when he realizes that? I'm good. Things are nice and happy here. I'm not going to complicate the family. But because of that, who now gets to take on as Redeemer? Boaz. And Boaz will take Ruth as his wife, and they will have a son named Obed. Why are we talking about this? Because Boaz and Ruth both acted in this story. They took action. But they also trust God's will to watch over them. Ruth to start this relationship with Boaz, but Boaz had to trust God. If he followed the rules, this relationship would work out in the end. At the very end of our reading, verse 12, as they talk about the blessings towards Ruth, as they talk about the blessings of these families, it says here, may the Lord give you descendants by this young woman who will be like our ancestor Perez, the son of Tamar in Judah. I'm guessing for most of us here, I'm just assuming, when you saw those names, that didn't really click for any major Bible stories. Is that a true statement? So you're like, why would they mention them at the end? Well, Perez is their kind of ancestral descent from Judah. So their family ties to Perez. Perez, his parents are Tamar and Judah. Tamar is both the wife and the daughter-in-law to Judah. So all the adults in the room are probably thinking, wait a second, let me think that out through for a second. Daughter-in-law and wife, well, they have a complicated story. And this actually happens during the time of Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat. So if you're curious, highly recommend you later this week, take a look at the story of Tamar and Judah. But the point here is that family is pretty messed up how Perez came to be. Ruth, coming back to now be with Boaz, has a pretty messed up story. In fact, her heritage from Moab. That goes back to Lot and his daughters at the time of Abraham. That's a pretty messed up story. Yet through these messed up stories, what does God continue to do? Work through them. And I told you their child, it will be named Obed. Obed will have a grandson. Guess what his name will be? David. So the reason why these names have been brought up these last 2 weeks, while we're talking about it, actually goes with the line of David. And what seems like small stories on verses are actually people connecting together to who David is. But who's the ultimate descendant of David? Jesus. So everybody we just talked to is part of the line of Jesus. And what I've been thinking about asking, how does this work with who Jesus is? Well, in his life, was there a couple, a man and a woman, who had really weird circumstances that both had to act and trust God? Mom and dad. It's amazing how you look at the life of Jesus and his line and his family, how it all ties into messed up stories, weird stories, certain circumstances, yet God has worked through all of them. In Jesus' life, he will go on to meet people who need healing, who are sick, people that feel ostracized from other people, tons of people that are going to have stories that are broken, that are hurting, that will be considered messed up. And he makes a point, I'm here to have a relationship with you, that my Father has sent me to die for you, to heal you, and be part of our family. You know, it's interesting to bring that up. It's for all of us, I really believe this, we look at other people's stories and lives and think, man, they're messed up. Or, you know that one messed up bunch of cousins we always invite to the last table at the wedding? Like, thank God we're not them. The more I keep on saying a messed up story, messed up story, messed up story, what's the common thing when it comes to Jesus and his family and what he even did in his ministry? There's a lot of messed up stories. Which means, are those really the oddball stories, or does that seem more normal? We have a God who came to say that he is here with us all. Are we broken and hurting and messed up? Yes. Each of our stories are different. But like the story of Ruth and Boaz, God continues to work through it. Why? Because he has a purpose. We see through them, this lines us up with Jesus. But with his life and his death, that includes us all in the family. One of the things I've been thinking about for the rest of this week is the mistake we as a church, in the history as a church, have made, is made people who have stories that are messed up feel like they're not welcome, feel like this is not the place for them. Yet the story of Jesus is lined both in his heritage and his ministry of welcoming those people, showing how we love you and are with you. Now, is there brokenness need to be dealt with? Yes. But God also has a plan of bringing them in part of the family. As we leave here today, as Southlake, how do we help ourselves who are getting messed up to love each other? But when we meet that person, to know that, know what? I love you too. You are God's creation. You know what? You need to know that he loves you. I might be aggravated with you. I might not like your circumstances. But for some reason, God loved me enough to die for me. I'm pretty sure I can at least show love to you. Southlake, we engage, grow, and share. And that's about sharing that love with others. We see it here with Ruth and Boaz having both action and trust, but also shows that we need to have some action to show that love, but also trusting God to work through those things together. And it might be scary, but here's a cool thing. We're doing this together, not alone. Amen? Amen. Thank you so much for taking time to experience a message here at Southlake. If you have time, make sure to subscribe right over here.
but also check out other videos that are down right over here. Again, the Lord bless you this week, and thank you for checking out South Lake Church, where we
engage, grow,